Folks, I've said it before, I'll say it again. CBC isn't truly a public broadcaster. It's more like a state-funded, taxpayer-backed attack machine. Now, thanks to our crowd-funded investigation at rebelinvestigates.com, we now have the shocking numbers. CBC's outside legal costs have tripled in just 3 years, ballooning from $2.5 million in 2021-2022 to $7.3 million in 2023-2024, for a total of nearly $14 million in just 3 years. $14 million in outside legal fees on the taxpayer dime. And get this, CBC refuses to disclose just how much they're spending on internal legal costs, like on their own legal department. They claim they don't have records of that. Are we supposed to believe that a multi-billion-dollar corporation, which takes $1.5 billion a year from taxpayers, doesn't track its own internal legal spending? Or are they hiding something? Is CBC using taxpayer money for political warfare? We already know that CBC doesn't just defend itself in court, it actively sues people with our money. Remember back in 2019, during the federal election, when CBC sued the Conservative Party of Canada? That's right, a taxpayer-funded broadcaster launched a politically motivated lawsuit against the opposition party over the use of news clips in campaign materials. Now, let that sink in for a second. While pretending to be a neutral news organization, CBC was dragging a political party to court with money that came from conservative voters, liberal voters, and everyone else who pays taxes in this country for using news clips, while also not suing the other parties that also used CBC footage. The lawsuit was so flimsy it got thrown out by the courts, but not before CBC wasted more of our money on legal fees. And that's not all. Maybe CBC's legal war chest is being used to keep certain skeletons locked away. Let's not forget the Jian Ghomeshi scandal, when CBC's former Golden Boy faced allegations of sexual assault and harassment. Ghomeshi originally sued the CBC for $55 million, only to later withdraw the lawsuit in a secretive deal. How much did CBC spend on lawyers to cover up its role in that mess? And that was just the last harassment scandal, or one of the last, or just the one that made headlines. With no transparency on their legal spending, we have no real way of knowing how many cases the CBC has settled behind closed doors. CBC is spending millions in legal battles while their viewership is in free fall. They have fewer people tuning in than independent journalists have tuning into them on YouTube. Canadians are choosing to ignore the CBC, and yet Team Trudeau-Carney keeps bailing the CBC out. The only thing keeping CBC alive is government force and mandatory taxpayer funding. So let's ask the obvious question. If CBC can't survive without billions in bailouts, if they can't stop wasting money on court cases, if they refuse to be transparent about their own scandals, why are we still paying for it? It's time to pull the plug on CBC once and for all. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. Help fund real investigative journalism at rebelinvestigates.com, because we work for you and not Mark Carney. Again, that's rebelinvestigates.com.